Second Sight is a 2004 game developed by Free Radical Design and published by Codemasters. Now, I just played and beat this game very recently, and by recently I mean yesterday at the time I'm recording this, and I just want to talk about it because this game is very unique, bro. It has a cool concept, an engaging story, interesting characters, and very creative and fun gameplay. So yeah, like I said, I just want to talk about it, man, so let's just go ahead and get right into it. So you play as a man named John Vatic, and he's rolled into a hospital room by two guards, and the two guards are talking crazy about him, which kind of reminds me of the beginning of Saints Row 2, because in that game, the guards are talking crazy about the main character as well. So they give him to the doctor, and the doctor ends up sedating John with some medicine, putting him to sleep for an unknown amount of time. So when John wakes up, he's confused on where he is, and he's talking out loud about his situation. And while he's doing this, my eyes are fixated on the view in the background. Like, what hospital has this amazing view outside of its windows like this, like with nothing but green grass and mountains in the back? It's a beautiful scenery, and it's just a nice touch to the game. Now, after a little while, John realizes he might have psychic powers because he undid the straps on him with his mind, and he decides to test it on the switch outside of his room to let himself out, and he does. Now, the game gives a mini tutorial letting you know that you can use telekinesis on certain objects and that you can also heal yourself, which is one of the abilities I'm very grateful that this game gives you because it saved me in so many situations. Now, making my way through the hospital, I found out that this was a stealth game, at least majority of the time it is. And the game also gives you the option to change the camera to your liking. You can have a free camera, or you can have a fixed camera, just like how the older Resident Evil games used to be. Now, I use the free camera 99.9% of the time because I just don't like the fixed camera, but at least they give you the option, and that's pretty cool because back in 2004, this 2004 we talking about, y'all. This ain't 2026. A lot of people like that fixed camera, so yeah, man, to each their own. But moving on, once you get through the hospital, John gets on the elevator, and he looks at his wristband, which has his name on it, and he starts to hear his name from an unknown voice. Then he has a flashback that takes him back 6 months ago at a US Marine base in Germany. The flashback begins with him walking up to a man and introducing himself as Dr. John Vatic. Now, the man shakes his hand and introduces himself as well, with his name being Joshua Stark, a colonel of the Marines. Now, they have a talk, and it ends with Stark telling Vatic that he needs to go through some military training before he's officially on the squad. Now, this is a cool part of the game, and it's basically just a tutorial for the rest of the game. It teaches you how to climb over objects, move by hanging on ledges, leaning on walls, and how to shoot. This part really reminds me of the MW2 tutorial, since they both take place on the military base. And since we're on the topic of Call of Duty and also guns, I noticed that the reload sound of every gun in this game is the same reload sound for the M1911 in Black Ops 1. And I'm gonna show y'all what I'm talking about. And also the way snipers in this game work is pretty unique as well. When you aim in, you get a scope with a red tint on the side of John, instead of it going full screen. Now, I actually like that because it's just different. Like, games back then were just trying random things, and they were just experimenting. And I wish that they would go back to doing that today, but it is what it is. Now, when the training is done, Vatic goes in the meeting where he meets everyone and learns what the squad is being deployed to do. They're going to Russia to track down a man named Grinko, who was doing research on psychic abilities. Now, after the meeting, the flashback is done, and John is coming out of the elevator only to be greeted by this guy. And this is when we get to see John's new ability called the Psi Attack. Now, at this moment in the game, you have 3 abilities. You have telekinesis, you have healing, and you also have the new Psi Attack that you just got. And you can cycle through the abilities with the D-pad. Now, when I went on the computer, I ended up seeing that the guard was messaging what I assumed to be his wife on something called Hyper Chat. And it's a nice little detail because if you sit and wait, she'll keep messaging him, asking him where he is, and as the time goes on, she gets more worried. And I'm just like, damn, lady, let this man work. But she has the right to be worried because this dude is dead. He got killed. But right now, John is trying to figure out how he got there, so he's making his way to the place where they keep the patient's records. And going through the facility, you have to sneak through guards, which I didn't do a good job at. I'm not that good at stealth games. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I'm not gonna lie. And you get a new ability called Charm, which lets you be invisible to everybody. So you could have slipped by people without being detected unless it's a camera near you. A camera can detect you, so that way I guess it's not too overpowered. But through all of that though, you get to the computer room where they keep the records. He finds out some info on himself, and he also finds out that Jane was supposedly killed in action, which sends him into another flashback to the team setting foot in Siberia. While walking, we see that John is still confused to why he's been chosen to be a part of this group. And if you think about it, it really doesn't make sense because he's a doctor and he has no other knowledge of what's going on. Now they end up getting ambushed, and now the mission starts. And right now, we're fighting our way through waves of soldiers trying to get to their base. I really appreciate these parts of the game because there's really no stealth involved, and it's just action. And as I'm writing this, the missions where you fight with your squad kind of reminds me of SOCOM. I don't really know why, but it does. Eventually, once we get close enough to the base, Jane ends up running off on her own, and you're instructed from start to go follow her. Now you follow her into some small building, and she tells John that she went in there because she thought she saw someone. And being down here is pretty fun too. It's just like the outside. You're just running and gunning. You find out some information about Grinko's whereabouts, and after that you fight your way through more soldiers to get back to the outside. And when this mission is done, you go back to the present where John is on the computer and looking at information. So as you can tell, this game is basically just going back and forth between the past and the present, putting the pieces together and trying to figure out what's really going on. So on the computer earlier, if you remember, it said that Jane was dead. It said she was killed in action. Well, now, after that flashback, it's saying that she's alive and that she's at an asylum in Vermont. So it's getting a little weird now. I was wondering like why it switched up like that after the flashback. So since John knows where she's residing at, he makes his way there, but first he must escape this facility that he's in. For most of the way, I was just going in guns blazing, not caring for the most part, and I wasn't really trying to be stealthy, but later on, in like these later missions, you will see that I had to learn how to be stealthy, or else like getting through this game was gonna take way longer than it should. It was crazy. Now in this escape mission, you get a new ability called projection, and it allows you to make a fully controllable clone that's undetected, able to pass through lasers, and it helps you do things like being able to turn on elevators so you can go up or whatever, because they don't have a switch on the elevator shaft for some reason. Now you also get an upgrade on your Psy Blast, and the upgrade allows you to generate a huge blast that knocks all surrounding enemies to the floor. It's a pretty well made mission, I ain't gonna lie. It wasn't bad. It's better than the later ones, I'll tell you that. And it ends with John hopping into this clean early 2000s Buick. We finally get to the asylum where Jane is, and this is where the game gets really interesting gameplay wise and also story wise. Now inside it's best to be stealthy for sure because this mission took me way longer than it should have. And I've been telling y'all throughout this whole video that I'm not really that good at stealth games, but this is a start because I eventually want to finish the Assassin's Creed games, at least the SEO games. And I also want to try out some Splinter Cell games because I've seen some people play them on YouTube and they look pretty fun. Now anyway, this mission requires you to use a lot of your psychic powers. And I like how it's set up because you can complete this mission in many different ways. It really just depends on how you want to do it. And yeah, it just offers a lot of replayability, which is another bonus. That's pretty cool. Now after so many reattempts and trying to figure out how to get to Jane without the alarm going off and 1,000 guards coming after me continuously, I found her in this room in a straitjacket, and now we have to escape the asylum with her. Much like the last mission, this one requires you to use a lot of your kit and also some skills like leaning on the wall to get from one side of the building to the other. And this one took me a little while to figure out because I had some difficulty at first because one of my tries, Jane got glitched and she ran off somewhere where I couldn't see her, so she couldn't follow me. And this mission is basically you just escorting her to an exit. Now, when you get into gunfights with guards or whatever, she gets scared and you have to calm her down with the charm ability to get her to follow you. It gets pretty annoying at times, I'm not gonna lie, but it wasn't super bad because the guards aren't really that hard to kill and it doesn't take long for her to get back calm and for her to follow you again. Now, once I figured out how to get through this section, I started to low-key like it. It was just a little confusing at first, I'm not gonna lie, because I don't know, they don't really give you, like, they don't really tell you what to do. You have to really figure out it on your own. Like, so yeah, you gotta use your brain a little bit. Now also, tell me why the person who had the key to this door on the outside to get to Jane was one of the patients in the asylum. That makes no sense to me at all. Like, it should have been a guard, or at least it should have been on a table somewhere in the building. But anyway, once I fixed the elevator to get her, we headed to the exit, which leads us into a sewer. So here we are with another flashback, and this one gets pretty weird, so get ready. Now John and Stark are talking to each other about what happened prior when John saved Jane's life. And during the conversation, John asks if Stark saw what he saw, and they both go check it out. And we soon see that it's some type of figure that's similar to one of John's projections. So they end up following it, and following it leads us to soldiers in the base. And this base is filled with some pretty cool stuff that I want to mention. At first is this arcade game that they have on the inside called Earth Impact. Now it's a pretty cool game. It reminds me of a free movement Space Invaders. And I found myself playing it a decent amount before I continued the mission. And the other thing is just nice detail. So when you're upstairs, you have to access a computer, and you can't because the power is off. So John asks Stark if he could turn it on, and after a short little while he does. And when it does turn on, we see the computer actually have a boot up screen, which is very fire to me. Like, I love little small details like this because they didn't have to do this at all. They could have just turned the computer on and that was it. But hey, they did, so that's pretty fire to me. And after more waves of soldiers, we end up inside of this tunnelway, and inside are even more soldiers, and also the projection that they were following. Stark ends up falling down trying to cross a gap, and when he does, the projection, which turns out to be a kid, talks to John. Now the kid confirms that he's from the project that the squad was deployed to investigate, and the kid also tells John that he's just like them, ending that conversation by giving John the psychic powers that he has in the present. And once you save Stark, you return to the present, trying to escape with Jane. We're back in the sewer, and we're back at being stealthy, but it's not as bad because at this point, I was learning. I ended up figuring out that you can one-shot enemies with a tranquilizer if you headshot them, so this mission actually went way smoother than I thought it would. And they had some tricky things going on, like having to pass by so many guards, crawling under very tight spaces that you wouldn't even think to go under, and just using your kit in certain situations. And you also get a new ability called Possession, which is like an additional, it adds on to projection. It allows you to possess people because there's some things that the regular projection doesn't allow you to do. Now when it comes to Jane, I noticed that her mind was slowly coming back. Like before, she was out of it, bro. Like she was saying random things and she was just borderline insane, but now she's basically talking like how she was in the flashbacks, which kind of surprised me. I'm not gonna lie, it was crazy. And at the end, John talks to her and she mentions that Stark is alive and that she knows where he is. So they set off to go meet him. They get to Queens and Jane drops off John. Some agents start to look for him and that's when the mission starts. Now I like this one because it gives a different vibe from the rest of the game. To me, it gives off like a GTA vibe, specifically GTA 4. So yeah, man, it's nice to see this change of scenery. Now after I tranquilized these guards, I went next to this trash can with flies around it. And when I got close, the flies started flying around John. Like I like this little detail, bro. This game has a lot of attention to detail that I really appreciate. And I can tell they really put a lot of effort into this game. Now I ended up seeing the agent get into it with the guy around the corner. And after the situation was done, he runs inside the building to talk to this lady. At first, I want to talk about their design because I really like their design, especially the ladies. Like the hoop earrings, the visor, the jean shorts, the jacket, and the boots, they all hit. They went crazy with this design, bro. I ain't gonna lie. When I spoke to her, she wasn't really friendly at first. To gain her trust, she wanted me to go deliver a package around the corner, so I did. But before getting to the destination, I found another group of people and they wouldn't let me pass, and they were serious, bro. They weren't gonna let me pass at all. So I delivered the package. The guy and John talked and they ended up talking about a mark. Now the mark indicates that you're with that particular gang side, I guess, because when I went back to those same people that wouldn't let me through, they let me through with no problem after they saw the mark. So after I went in, agents ended up attacking us not too long after. And after we were finished with them, I went into Stark's apartment. Now John didn't fire him straight away, so he ended up reading some random files that were laid on the table. That's when Stark appeared. Now Stark doesn't know who he is at first, so he draws his gun on John. And soon after he realizes who it is, he says he thought that John had been killed. It triggers another flashback. I don't know if you can tell, but I really love these flashbacks, man. There's no stealth involved. It's just straight gunfights. Now the team is in Dubrinsk and they're nearing the base where Grinko's in. Now it looks deserted at first until gunshots start ringing and now it's time to fight back. This mission takes a little while to get through because you're separating into different groups a lot. And for the first part, you have to protect this person in your squad named Cortelli while he intercepts their communication satellite. After waves of soldiers is done, and you just keep moving into that base, and that's all this mission is, bro. You do this one particular task and you just keep gradually going into their base, and it's not all gunfights because you have to use your psychic powers for certain parts of the mission, like finding this locked door that the squad ends up finding the key for. Now once you go through it, you have to fight some more soldiers. Like usual, you have to fight a lot of soldiers in this mission, I ain't gonna lie. And after you're done with that, you find this woman. But before you figure out what's going on, you're sent back to the present. Now we're back in the present, and this is basically the end game. Now John and Stark have to leave this hotel because it's being ambushed by agents trying to kill them so they won't reach Silas Hansen. And it's a lot of them. It gets pretty hectic, but I got through it. Now it's time to go where Hansen's located, which is this place in New Jersey. And we see John end up knocking this guy out, and we get this cool picture of him on the computer. Now this mission was my least favorite. I didn't really know how to get through it. It took me a long time because you had to get something called a UVD from a room and transfer files from computers so you can get the monitor in the main room on, and man, it was a lot. And the monitor lets you see what the plan Hansen had was. I summarized this very shortly, but it was way more in depth than that. Like this is probably the most stealthiest mission in the game, and it got pretty annoying at times. But like usual, at the end, you get another flashback, and we go back to where the squad is talking to that lady that we found. Now she tells you that the Soviets have the kids, and she tells John that he's just like the children, and that he must be the one to save them. So he goes alone to go save them. And they're located at a church. And after getting through so many guards, bro, I finally got there and it leads me underground. Now this underground part was hell. It was so many soldiers, and they introduced new type of soldiers that don't take damage from bullets, and in order to damage them, you have to use your psychic powers. So going through the underground bunker, you find kids one by one that all have the same powers you do, and they help you by leading you to them. And after you help, you meet Grinko, the man who's being made by Hansen to do research on the kids and figure out how to distribute and use their psychic abilities. You end up going back to the present, and now it's time to confront Hansen. To get to him, you have to fight through soldiers and also test subjects that have the same powers you have. And once you've dealt with them, Hansen tells the soldiers to escort you to his room with no extra hassle. Now, once in his office, John finally confronts him. Silas tells John that they killed the kids at Dubrinsk, that he's the reason that the master plan worked, and that they have samples all across the country, and it's basically all over with. So John has basically been defeated at this point, and a gunshot goes off, which I think kills Jane, but you don't really know because it doesn't show anything. And then this is when the last flashback happens. The conversation with Grinko and John continues, and John tells him what's really happening. When he does, an agent walks in, then he kills Grinko, and that starts the final mission. Now here you have to make your way through the last of the soldiers, save a doctor that was working with them, and keep proceeding through the bunker. And as you get deeper, John goes back and forth between the present and the past. But the kids help him get his mind together, and this is where you figure out the plot twist of the game. The whole time, the present was actually the past, and the so-called present, where John is trying to save everyone after their mission failed like 6 months later, was actually the future that would happen if they didn't stop Hansen right now. And this was a pretty good plot twist that I didn't see coming. And once you get to where Silas Hansen is, they have an exchange, then you start the final fight of the game. And this was fire because you free all the kids out of their cells, and they all help you fight against the soldiers. And it's a pretty creative final fight if you ask me. And there's no way that you can lose because the kids are powerful and they can't take damage at all because they're kids. Like, they're not gonna let kids get hurt in games. When the battle is done, the kids break the glass Hansen is hiding in, and I'll just let y'all look at the final scenes before I come back.
No, stay back. What do you want? Stay away from me. No! I said stay away! Don't touch me! Ah! You bit me, you little bastard!
So, yeah, man, that's the end of the game. Pretty fun. And the part I liked the most was the plot twist. I actually liked a lot of parts. I like the guns. I like the psychic powers. I like a little bit of the stealth. I like the characters. But the main thing I liked was that plot twist in the end because it was just so unexpected, bro. I did not expect it. I was like wondering, like, man, it's the final mission. Like, how the hell they gonna like twist this to the present? But they hit me with a plot twist, so they got me. Now, this game is definitely a hidden gem, bro. And I hope y'all enjoy watching this video just as much as I like making it and playing this game. So I'm not gonna make the ending super long, bro, because yeah, it's time to end this video. I'm gonna say that. So I'll catch y'all in the next video, bro. Y'all be smooth, man, and peace.